So next to me is the 2024 Nissan Z Performance. This one's finished in the Boulder Gray. MSRP is $55,000. Now we've had this for a week to take a look at, see what this car is all about. I've driven quite a few of the new Zs over the last 2 years, and I even own its direct competitor, which is the Toyota GR Supra. Equally equipped, those are gonna come in around $5 grand more than the Z. So in today's video, let's take a full look at what Nissan's newest sports car has to offer. Is this a sports car worth buying? Should you save the $5 grand over the Supra and go for the Z? Let's get into this car and see what this is all about. Now the new Nissan Z comes very nicely equipped with a twin turbocharged 3-liter V6. This thing makes 400 horsepower with 350 pound-feet of torque. You can either get the 9-speed torque converter automatic transmission, or in this particular case, a 6-speed manual. These cars are rear-wheel drive. On the performance cars, you're also going to get a limited slip rear differential and even a set of Akebono brakes. So it's pretty nicely equipped. 0 to 60 time with the manual transmission is around 4.5 seconds. With the automatic, you can get closer to about 4 seconds flat. Now the Nissan Z's current weight is around 3,500 pounds, which is 200 pounds more than a Toyota Supra. So it has a little bit extra weight to carry. The wheelbase is also just a little bit longer at 100 inches. However, this is built by Nissan. It is using a lot of shared parts throughout the company. You have the Infinity's twin turbo engine and a very similar platform from the 370Z. So at least it is an in-house Japanese car versus a shared collaboration. And then on top of that, the Z Performance does give you a few pretty cool interior options. We have the blue synthetic leather interior. You're gonna see this vinyl material across the dash and seats, and then a cool micro suede throughout the inserts of the door. Now, when we move to the styling with the newest Nissan Z, it does have a very retro style. A lot of this design is influenced by the old 240 and 280Z. So it looks significantly different than the previous generation car, which was the 370Z. Now, up in front, you get a pretty cool square off front grille. It's a little quirky looking, I will say. However, they've added this cool silver trim in the upper portion of the grille compared to when they first unveiled the car. So it gives it a little bit more contrast. We have very sharp lines in the lower splitter and a nice set of LED headlights that also look super retro. They do have a daytime running light in them, and then a really sharp point from the hood going into the bumper with the updated Nissan badge. So it is a cool looking car, a little different, I would say, with this retro semi-boxy appearance, but you also have that really long hood that a Z is totally known for, and the two-tone color combination really adds a little bit of flair. And at the side profile, I don't think you can complain with the overall profile of a Nissan Z. We do have a set of raised forged lightweight wheels, and the red brake calipers contrast really nicely. That two-tone design looks really good sloping into the trunk, and you even have this cool silver katana blade with the Z badge, just giving it a little bit more of a heritage look. You have very sloping and clean body lines throughout the side profile, a set of flush mounted door handles, black on the side skirt. One funny thing, the gas cap is absolutely massive. This fuel door is like twice the size of my hand. That is the one awkward thing you're gonna notice with the side profile. But on this black roof, we have the integrated third brake light, and then everything just slopes right down and cuts off into the squared off rear end with a trunk mounted spoiler. The rear end of the Z is my favorite angle, especially these LED taillights. You can see just how nice they look, very old school like previous generation cars. Very clean design with the gloss black rear diffuser, dual exhaust tip. You got the Z badge, and then the Nissan logo right in the center also doubles as a trunk button, which is a really cool touch you don't see on the competition. And of course, somewhat of a hatchback design. Like every Z car, you're gonna have all that storage into the trunk. Now the trunk storage space is the exact same as we saw in the 370Z. All the same space, even the carpet is actually the exact same part. So it's very familiar if you are used to these cars in general. But overall styling definitely is cool, and I like how you at least have some practicality. When you move on to the interior, you have the button you can press to lock and unlock it. And then moving on to the interior, as you can tell, we have that cool two-tone blue color. Now, when you're sitting in the Z, my one complaint are the seats. Now, the sport and performance cars are gonna have these exact same seats, just the sport model is gonna have fabric. The Nismo will give you Recaro bucket seats. For me, those are where it's at. You sink in them, you feel like you're in a race car. These seats, at my height, 5'11", the base is extremely short, so my legs kind of feel a little tall in here. The base itself is decently padded, but on the back, you can feel the lumbar piece in your back under a lot of bumps. So I wouldn't say they're the most comfortable. You do have manual adjustments here to raise and lower the base, and some power controls to slide the seat forwards, back, and recline. However, I would like a more performance-focused seat in a car like this, like the Toyota Supra has. So while the seats leave a little bit to be desired for at least my height, this interior is actually pretty nicely appointed. You are going to notice 370Z carryover parts. Your climate control dials in the center are exactly what we saw for over a decade in the last car. The door handles on the door, the air vents on the side, most of the door panel itself looks exactly the same. So there is some kind of parts bin shared parts aspects, but we have a much nicely updated multimedia engage cluster. So if I put my foot on the clutch, fire it up, got a nice start button right in the center, which is a great touch. But you're gonna notice the massive screen right in the center, basically what you would expect on all of Nissan's newer cars. We have your screen right in the center, we have shortcuts as well, menu button, and it basically looks like your typical modern Nissan. So it's nice to see that. We of course have navigation. Now the backup camera, the screen is a little pixelated, not exactly the most up-to-date looking camera, but it's nice to see that you're gonna have features like Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. On the gauge cluster, you have a really cool design with a massive tack in the center, your gear indicator, you can even see boost gauge on the left, G-force meter, as well as your tire pressure. You have more vitals throughout that screen, and then you can even tone it down, changing the view into a more normal design. There's also going to be 3 analog gauges on the dashboard for your boost gauge, your RPM of the turbo, as well as the battery. Now, other things in here, we do have garage door openers on the mirror, dome lights that are not LED, so again, a little old-fashioned. All this stuff in the ceiling looks just like a 370Z. Pretty good size for the sun visors. And then the controls on the steering wheel are pretty sleek. They kind of look like touch-sensitive buttons. They're very flat within it, so it makes it look nice. We have a 3-spoke leather-wrapped steering wheel, and I like how the center spoke, you can kind of put your hands through it to make it comfortable to just cruise in this car. Now, in the center, we don't have any wireless phone charging, but we do have a nice storage with 2 different USB ports. We do have heated seats and a trunk button, and a single cup holder right in the center console. However, you can slide the center console armrest back and it reveals a secondary cup holder, and we can even open this up and there's a nice amount of storage back behind that. And behind the seats, there's even extra storage space. Now, one drawback getting to that area, you actually have to go ahead and press these buttons to get the seat out of the way. That's the only way to gain access into the storage areas that are behind the seats. They are extremely practical, but with the power seats, that's the only way you can get there. Another interesting thing to notice, the carpeted floor mats are insanely plush. They look as nice as the carpet in my house. So that is kind of a funny touch, but overall, that is the interior of the Z. Nice options overall. So what is it like to drive in the Nissan Z? So my complaints, we'll start with that. I'm not a fan of these seats. They just feel way too small. I feel like the lumbar support really isn't all too good. When you do this lever, it pushes you in the back. But no matter where you set that, you can feel that piece in your back when you kind of bounce. The seat bases are also really short, like I had mentioned earlier, to where I just feel like I'm kind of on top of the car. I don't ever feel like I'm sinking into this car. A sports car, you really want to be wrapped around. In the Nismo Nissan Z, those Recaro seats are amazing. You are hunkered down into the seats and it feels so good to drive that. Same with the Toyota Supra. So the seats themselves, I just don't like. That is my one complaint. Other than that though, this is pretty fun to roll through the gears. And the suspension does do a good job going through the quicker turns. Now, this is a fixed suspension. You don't get any drive modes to stiffen it up or to soften it more. So it's kind of got to be that happy medium. It is soft enough for the day-to-day to where it does absorb bumps very nicely. And in the harder turns, after you get through that initial little bit of body roll, it does firm up to where it keeps you pretty planted. So this car is kind of that happy medium of being a fine, daily drivable sports car. This is very roomy feeling with all the glass. You have an open feeling interior as well. The Toyota Supra is a little cramped for some people's taste. I personally do like that better because I feel more like I'm sunken into the car versus just kind of out in plain sight. It feels a little bit different in this car. But it does give you a cool blend to just daily drive this car like normal, but still have the fun performance when needed. The 6-speed manual is pretty notchy. It does feel a little wobbly. The Supra's is a lot tighter and more performance focused. However, that translates to where this is a lot more forgiving. If you're really daily driving this, having a passenger or something, this transmission's a little bit easier to get a smooth gear change up and down, and the clutch pedal's a little more forgiving as well. There's a little bit of turbo lag. You gotta get to about 4,000 RPM, but when you do, this thing pushes. It pulls pretty hard and you're gonna hit pretty high speeds without even thinking. And of course, being a rear-wheel drive, You know, you get that tail end out and actually have a blast. I will say the steering surprised me. I feel like the steering is pretty direct. It feels heavy enough for a sports car, but also light enough for the day-to-day. The car tracks really nice and straight, and it's actually a really smooth car to be behind the wheel. Now, it doesn't sound all particularly impressive. You would think a twin-turbo V6 would sound better than a vacuum cleaner, but not in this case. However, aftermarket mods truly wake up the Z with tuning, exhaust, intakes. I mean, you're talking about a lot more power and a lot more sounds to wake up this car. So Nissan's done a cool job basically reviving the 370 with modern things. Unfortunately, this is not an all-new car. This really is a 370Z with the modern Infinity's twin turbo motor along with modern Nissan technology. So it's a very simple car. It's nothing all too fancy or crazy techy. It's an old platform with just kind of Nissan stuff that they had available, which could be a good thing depending on who you are. Not everybody likes the BMW Toyota collaboration to where it's built in Europe, it's a BMW underneath. This is a Nissan underneath. Nissan built this car with their own products, and it kind of continues the decades and decades of Nissan Z heritage. So it is a cool way that Nissan's done it, keeping a low volume sports car alive. It's just, is this enough to make you want to save the money and not go for the competition? Competition is pretty steep, and if you're looking at other platforms, there are plenty of other cars in the mid-50s that offer a heck of a lot of performance and more features, refinements, technology, and things like that. So for being a sports car, I mean, you can drive this and have a smile. You can obviously get the rear end out a little bit. It's fun to play with this car. There is launch control in it. I forgot how to do it. You might have to have traction off, but if I go ahead and try it, launch control. Not bad. And that was 60. So launch control, not bad. You gotta kind of feather the clutch slowly, and it'll do a pretty decent launch. Squeal the tires a little bit, but at least it doesn't just do a massive burnout. So there's a lot of fun aspects with the Z. So those are my thoughts with the 2024 Nissan Z Performance. Now, overall, is this a fun to drive sports car? Obviously, it is powerful, it's fun to take the turns, it has cool amenities, cool color options, it looks pretty neat inside and out. The biggest drawback with the car is, are these really selling all too well? Honestly, I don't think so. In the last 2 years, I have only ever seen 2 Zs out in the real world. I saw a white one in my local area, and then a proto spec at a car show. And that's it. I've seen multiple Supras. Obviously, I've owned 2 of them. You know, I see them around, people have them. Judging by the comments and the views, a lot of people decided to buy a Supra instead of the Z, myself included. For me, $5,000 to $6,000 more expensive to get adaptive suspension and all the refinements of the Supra, along with nicer bucket seats, a much tighter manual transmission, and honestly a better performance car. It was very well worth the $5,000. So personally, I think this car is just a little bit too expensive. At $55,000, you can almost get a base 3.0 Supra, which is pretty much the same as a 3.0 Premium. And it has pretty much all the features of a Nissan Z and still has more performance to give. On top of that, I'm curious if Nissan is really pumping out production with these cars, given I have hardly ever seen one at a dealership. So comment below, what do you guys think? Can Nissan make this car extremely successful? Do they just need to reposition it price-wise? If this was maybe $49,999, I think that would significantly undercut the Supra to where I would go for it for 10 grand less. And that gives you a $10,000 budget to play with mods and really make this even crazier. This car, well, the way it sits, you can tune it, do mods, and make 500 horsepower pretty easy. So it's a really good platform for the enthusiast. It's just a really hard car to go towards when the competition has many, many more features. And for $5,000, all those extra features are very well worth it. So with that said, the Nissan Z, it is a fun car. I wish I could see more of them out in the world. I want to see more people buy them, but I think it's up to Nissan to maybe lower the price just a tad, or give these cars even more features, give us adaptive suspension, give us the bucket seats, and give it a little bit more premium feel. But anyways, those are all my thoughts. Comment below, what do you guys think of the Nissan Z? Is this gonna be a successful car? Are we gonna see these year after year for a next decade like we saw with the 370? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I would love to see more of this car out in the world giving the Supra a run for the money. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you all in the next video.